What's keeping you up at night?
Access to data is very, very difficult.
Businesses collect a lot of data. The big challenge they have is getting value out of the data and creating insights. The common situation is data rich, insight poor.
What's holding up your ability to create this model that you dream about?
It's a ton of work.
I'm Rudy Curry.
And I'm Marcel Berger.
Welcome back to The Root. Today, we're joined by Matt, Head of Technology at the construction company McNab.
McNab's been around for more than 30 years. And in that time, they've actually grown from a few hundred employees to right now, they're up at nearly 600.
That kind of scale brings its own challenges. And for Matt, the biggest one right now is data.
Data. Too much of it and everywhere. And the question is, how do you turn that into something that can actually fuel growth in the business?
Well, I've been there before. I've seen it plenty of times, and I know you have as well. And we're here to help Matt get to the root of the problem.
And hopefully we'll uncover some opportunities that maybe he hasn't seen, just another side of the coin.
Let's get into it.
Rudy, my man, we've been talking about this for a while, but now we have our first official The Root podcast problem to solve. How do you feel?
No, I'm excited. Absolutely excited. This is what we've been working towards for months now.
Oh, we sure have. And I'm not going to lie, Matt. Rudy brought you to the table. I don't like Queensland. So tell me a bit about you. Tell me about your journey. How'd you get to where you are? And tell me a bit about where you are.
Thanks, Marcel. Loving to be on the route. Thanks, Rudy, for inviting me. My journey, I started off life as a civil engineer. So did engineering for a number of years. That morphed into construction programming with a construction company, and with that required just someone to look after their computers and those sort of things as well. So this is talking 20 odd years ago. So turned into being a system administrator for a construction company, and then from there it sort of just went full time IT. So from there, I've always focused in on the construction development industries. So I worked with varied varieties, different real estate, development, and then construction. And I've ended up at McNab 20 odd years later.
So I'm going to have to butt in because that was a lot of jargon. I don't know what the hell a programming, I can't remember what the middle one was. Effectively, you were the computer guy. Is that right?
I was always the computer geek. I was always the guy that fixed everything in the office.
And how did that feel being amongst a whole bunch of stubby wearing singlet tradies?
It was awesome. Every company I've worked for has been really, really cool. They've always been that smaller tier, so never been a big tier one type companies. Always been, around about the 200 to 300 type employees.
That's fun, right?
It is fun. You get very personal with your colleagues, and they're very social as well. So you're doing lots of shit outside of work as well, which makes a lot of fun. And McNab has made the shift from that. So, when I started here, they were around about that 250 to 300 odd employees, and now they're pushing 600.
How long has that been, Matt?
13 years.
I'm actually just curious about that. So I live in the startup world, so I live in very fast growth. Period, or phase. So is the 13-year scale normal in the construction space, or can you scale faster?
Are you talking about how long you're actually staying at a company?
No, how long the company has grown from the 3x on staff effectively. So I assume 3x on top line.
Is that like a normal journey for a construction company to grow that quickly, or is there something unique about you guys?
I think it is unique for McNab. Unfortunately, construction within Australia pretty much goes the other way. If it does grow fast, it does also die fast. And there has been a lot of companies that have disappeared over the last 5-10 years. But yeah, McNab, I think because of their diversification of what they do, they've been able to continue to grow.
Yeah, I actually did some research today on it. Because what makes you guys unique is your end-to-end on the project.
Correct. Yeah. To a point, so now we are doing our own developments. So we are our own client. We are also now built out another business unit called our MBS. So we actually go and do work for the body corporates and that type of stuff. So go and fix up the old buildings as well. So we do building them and then also fixing them at the other end as well.
Rudy, you'll back me up on this one. What's keeping you up at night?
Keeping me up at night.
Let me help you, right? Look, while you're thinking about what keeps you up at night, the whole point of what Marcel and I are doing is we really like to, between us, we've got really different experience. Marcel, hyper growth and startups. I've been in enterprise and corporate through my career, and between the two of us, we've got tons of knowledge and experience we love to share with people. And what we want to do and what we're trying to achieve is solve a problem for you real time on the podcast. That's what we want to try and do today. And so by Marcel asking you what's keeping you up at night, that's us trying to go, well, what's your number one problem and how can we help you here today in real time?
And this is Rudy's exact role to be my translator into corporate speak. But yeah, we love problems. We actually seek out problems, which is strange and annoying. Yeah, so in your current position and phase of growth of the business, 13 years in, what's keeping you up at night?
Access to data and insights to data is the big issue that we have. So being fast growing, things just get invented along the way without a lot of thought process around it. So a lot of that is Excel, Word, email, and that data lives everywhere type thing. But you try and get inside of that data and try to analyze it. That makes it really, really difficult. So we are on a journey in regards to how do we map out that data and be able to visualize it. And we now have a data team for them to actually analyze that data and try to find some really cool shit in there. But just trying to get that data is very, very difficult.
And what kind of data? We're talking business data, like financial data, business data, customer data, marketing data. Is there a particular area that's the real challenge or the real opportunity to unlock the next stage of growth?
Yeah, don't get me wrong. We do have systems. Not everything is just run off Excel and that type of stuff. But a lot of the new businesses that we're spinning up don't have systems, so they are flying pretty blind and that type of stuff. So we have our big construction business. It does have its systems in place. I wouldn't say that they're perfect, but at least there is a process in a lot of it. But the new businesses don't. They are very much just coming out of Excel and coming out of chats, around the coffee machine.
Just out of curiosity, give me a range, if you can, of size of the new businesses and size of McNab, just so I understand the complexities.
Yeah, so I suppose if you talk size of, say, staff members, you would have out of those 600 odd, you might have 50 in those new businesses, and then the rest are all construction across the board.
Oh wow! So each one of the businesses has a handful.
No, yes, yeah, that's right. So they're not huge, but they are definitely growing. So those businesses have only been in existence for a couple of years.
That must be a real cultural dichotomy in your business, right? You've got, the 550 people machine, which is the main business, and then you've got these little divisions, either new that you've started or acquired with a handful of people.
I think you hit on the main thing there, which is the culture, which you want to make sure that is instilled from the main business into the smaller enterprises. Every one of those businesses does have long-term employees from McNab inside them. So they're not just brand new spin-offs. They've all got, people that have been with the company. I was talking to the guy that runs Steel just before. He's been with the business for 25 years. The business has been around for 30 years. So he's been pretty much there the whole time. And so he's running that business.
So just out of curiosity then, what value are you actually going to get by integrating the data of those businesses into the mothership? Do you need to do that to extract the enterprise value of those acquisitions and new integrations? Or is it just because we want everyone to be on the same platform?
Bit of column A, bit of column B. But I think the biggest part is actually giving access to the data to those businesses to enable them to grow and to be able to grow quickly. So you have a lot of assets or a lot of data within the large business, which is very much siloed. You want to open that up and you want to get that full 360 view of something and not just have it from one-sided. So if you think of what the construction business does, there's a lot of opportunity in there because all of these other businesses are all interconnected with that main construction business.
They would have been supply lines on larger projects.
Yeah, spot on.
Yeah.
So whether it's steel, whether it's glazing or building products or hoists or whatever type thing, they're all sort of interconnected.
Yeah, that'd keep me up at night too. I'm not gonna lie. Data's a nightmare, and Rudy, you've had a lucky life because you got to build it from the ground up with a whole bunch of money behind you. I just spent 5 years. I just spent 5 years literally doing your problem, and even worse because we had spreadsheets in different languages, which was a nightmare. So we didn't even know what data we had, let alone know where it was. So we didn't even know how to file it because you didn't know what was there. And then we spent a lot of time trying to build this big data lake. But then we got to this point of, is it really going to add value or are we just doing it because we kind of want to do it?
I think what I observe, probably similar to the two of you, is businesses collect a lot of data and sometimes they're really good at consolidating that into one place and sometimes they're not. The big challenge they have is getting value out of the data and creating insights. So, I think typically the common situation is data rich, insight poor for a lot of companies. And I think that's a symptom of how hard data engineering used to be or can be. So you end up spending your time and resource on the data engineering efforts or consolidation of system efforts or integration of different systems, bringing them into one place. You get so consumed with that you forget about why you started in the first place, which is I need data to grow my business. I need the information. What are the things I need to know about my business to grow?
Yeah, even simpler, Rudy, on that. Data answers questions. So if you don't have your questions, you don't know what data you need.
Or in some cases, I think you're pretty right there, but also sometimes you don't know what you don't know, and the data should help you find that out. And again, I see when I talk to my other peers, other CIOs and CDOs, lots of dashboards and lots of tables with information in it, but people are still having to trawl these things and to find the insight to actually help them unlock growth. And I think that sounds like a similar challenge to what you've got, Matt, where you've got the big mothership, which is pretty well set up, and you've got some data there and customer data and business data. You want to unlock it to those subsidiaries, but that's a challenge. And you've got to work out, you got to find the balance between how much data engineering time do you spend on it versus finding another way to do it. And I think that's probably where Marcel and I often disagree is on how you do it. And we'll talk a bit more about that later.
You're spot on, Rudy. You were saying before, just in regards to data and how much data and the rest of it. And that's one of our biggest struggles is within our data lake. Like we definitely said to ourselves at the start of that project is we're not going to bring everything in. We're going to analyze. We're going to make sure that the data is, valuable to us to bring in. But even with that, it's still a shit ton of data. And we constantly get requests for other data to be brought into that data lake, to the point now where we've had to say for these new ingestions, look, we've just got to hold off. We've got to get the engineering right. We've got to make sure that the data that's there is actually giving us the right answers rather than just being a shit ton of data. And then depending on how you're querying it, you're going to get different sort of results.
All right, cool. That's a perfect segue because it's time to dig. Let's get to the root. Okay, so if that problem, how do you not know what actual scope and questions you need to answer of request of data out of that data lake? And is that changing rapidly?
It is changing. Construction is very much a risk-averse sort of game. They're always looking at, well, how can we make sure that we're doing this safely, that we minimize risk? Because typically construction operates off very minimal sort of profit margins. So you might be doing, say, $100 million job and, you might the typical is say 3 to 5% or something like that you're going to do. So they're very risk averse. But something that, the new CEO is always challenging the business is, what's the opportunity? That the guys are always in that mindset of risk, rather than looking at, hey, how can we turn this around and find what the opportunities are? So some of the cool stuff that we find within the data is, now that you've got visibility across everything, is that you can then see, well, what opportunities do we have? So we're letting a trade. Well, what normally happens, you let a trade on a construction site, just that construction site lets that trade. Now what happens, you go, what other projects are in that same phase that could be letting us that same package? Let's group those things together. And so you can actually get that leveraging across the bigger business.
So really the biggest opportunity short term is operational efficiencies.
Correct. Yeah.
What other questions did you build the lake house for to answer, outside of your CEO told you to?
We typically do what he says.
Yeah. Because obviously, do you have reporting? Like, you'd have reporting and legislation requirements, wouldn't you?
Yes. So definitely safety is a big thing. So, safety reporting, once you get the data right and, you build up all your different views and the different reports and all the rest of it, the time to produce those has reduced significantly. So before, say, a monthly safety reporting would take someone 2 weeks basically to be putting that report together.
Who does those reports? Who actually pulls them? Is that resource a growth resource or an operational resource? As in, can the time be repurposed for growth?
Yes, definitely. So you'd hope that person, now I don't know what their day-to-day sort of stuff is, but I mean, they're able to look at how we can improve the safety more so than just reporting on that safety.
So you've spoken a lot about efficiency so far and things like compliance. Are you getting asked any questions around how data can help you grow your revenue, how to make you more profitable?
Oh, definitely. And I think that's something that, we haven't really had the opportunity yet to get the data scientists, let them loose on the data to actually look at what they can come up with. At the moment, it's been very much, hey, this is my monthly reporting. We need to change that up. And a lot of it's same for same. But we're nearly on that point where we want to say, okay, well, we've done all that stuff now. What else is in there that can actually give us those different opportunities?
Do your commercial teams really understand the drivers that help them grow their business? Sometimes the request for data is a mechanical one. And if you don't actually understand your drivers for growth as a commercial leader, and you can't, you've got a big IT portfolio, you've got to look after cybersecurity, systems, all that. It's not for you to work this out, but those that are leading commercial parts of your business, they really need to understand what drives their growth. And they should be able to articulate those things so that analysts and data scientists, if you have those things in your business, and not everyone does, can actually help them surface those insights to help them grow.
So for all of our listeners who are not in corporate world, what Rudy actually said then was, what questions are you going to ask the data?
Correct. Yes. And
that was the corporate jargon speak of that.
That's right. And look, the reason why there's some really technical terms there is when you've got a really big business and you've got really complex data, the types of skills that you need to analyze that data are just at a different level than maybe a small business. And it sounds like Matt and his business are reaching that point where actually they need really skilled people to start surfacing insights that a commercial person couldn't do on their own. And that's a really interesting tipping point. It just shows how complex your business actually is.
Just out of curiosity, that data scientist, how long have they been in this role? Have they been part of this data organization project?
Yes, definitely. So Tim's been with us 6 months, I would say, maybe 8 months. So fairly new. We do also have another finance analysts or a couple of finance analysts as well, sits within that finance team, for them to sit down with those different business leaders to extract and visualize the data as well.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Rudy. Though it's this happens a lot in business where the finance or the CFO is responsible for reporting to the board, but the problem is growth opportunities come from commercial mindsets. They don't come. But accountants are the opposite of that.
Yes, I know that being an ex-accountant, I know exactly what you're talking about. There's a very big difference between kind of things that you have to report financially and then the things you need to do to help your commercial team grow. And now I don't know the building industry as well as you do, so I can't pull examples from it to give you. But there'll be things that are well outside of the financial realm that you need to know, and maybe people are doing it some other way, or they're doing it intuitively, or in little black books, or on a spreadsheet that are actually more important for your growth than the core financials as well. And I that's a real watch out where you put your energy in the data team. Is, do you put it in reporting after the fact and reporting history, or do you shift it up front and you start looking at what are the things that are going to help the commercial teams or the operational teams either grow or be more efficient before it even gets to the financial part where you're reporting back in time, really, not going to help you change anything majorly, in my opinion. Coming from an ex-accountant, I feel that way.
something that we haven't got to, but definitely something that I've always dreamed of, is how do we get that insights of what the story's telling us, what we're predicting will be coming. So then, of course, you can ensure that you're utilizing that as the best way to choose the right path.
What stops people from doing that in your business, as an example? And not to pick on you or anything like that. It's a common theme. It happens to all of us. Maybe less, I think, in the startup world. So this is, Marcel's point of view is really interesting, because usually you have to find those things or your company goes broke and you don't pay your wages next week.
Yeah, well, in construction, like I suppose taking it right back to the core is making sure that you're not overly exposed within certain markets. So you need to ensure that you are diverse, that you're not just putting all your eggs in one basket. So you're not just doing residential projects, because that bubble has burst. So you want to make sure that, hey, you're focusing on, say, industrial and aged care or health and that type of stuff as well. And you keep moving that around.
That's macro hedging, effectively. Sorry for the jargon, but that's exactly the same as an investment banker managing their portfolio. Yeah.
And the other big thing that McNab does is just ensure that we're not working with any dickheads.
Oh, how do you do that in Queensland? I don't get it.
Hey.
Sorry, Queensland listeners. Sorry.
That's a powerful place to be, though, where as a company, you can be selective about who you work with. That's something I think a lot of companies would be envious of.
Yeah, spot on. I think we're very lucky to be in that spot.
You're listening to The Root. We're deep in conversation with Matt and McNab about their nightmare of current data, newly acquired data, and old systems.
If you're enjoying this chat, make sure you hit subscribe, drop us a review, or leave a comment. We'd really love to hear how you're tackling your data challenges in your own business.
All right, let's get back to it. So, back to The Root. What's holding up your ability to create this dream model that you dream about?
It's a shit ton of work to get done.
No, that's crap, because you're a well-resourced company. Don't tell me about fucking work, mate. I come from a world where we have 2 staff with 14 roles. So, come on, man.
Yeah. I will say I am very lucky in the fact that I do have staff that where they are able to bring that data in. But to be able to get the data, I never realized how freaking hard it is to get data and get data in the right way so we can actually utilize it. Like, I thought when I started on this journey that, shit, there's an API, let's pull the freaking data in and then we'll get the insights to it. It's not that simple. You can get it in, but you have to transform it, and everything has to interrelate. And, my data engineers, they're pulling their hair out and they're constantly screaming at, how much work there is to do.
So it's really funny you say that, Matt. we went through a process recently at in my recent role at Factor Bikes, where we had a very large ERP, an over-engineered ERP, and we had to integrate that into a retail e-commerce platform, being Shopify. The problem is the SKU tests weren't consistent, because one was a manufacturing set of SKU sets that was built by a factory because that's what they need for work orders, and there was actually no logical translation into a retail SKU. So I know exactly what you mean, because literally nothing matched at all. And it is a really hard problem. But then we actually got to this point after about 8 months of it, where we went, what's more important? Which data is actually more important? And for us, it was the retail SKUs, because the retail SKUs make money. The manufacturing SKUs have been going forever. It's not the customer, it's just the retail SKUs. So that was our point. No. So we just focused on that and fixed it in like 3 weeks. Just by changing the lens. As a lot, no, I'm not going to lie. That'd be a lot harder in a big corporate business with 600 staff, because you have to like do business cases and things. But it's kind of like lowering your eyes a bit or going upstream, those kind of analogies of just being able to, what is the most important data to get the next piece of growth? So thinking about that, because I can see that your brain's seriously ticking. What do you believe the most important data is to be able to map to create the best first win?
You're right. Like the data is there. So the easiest and the biggest win that we can have is really surfacing up what the new businesses can pull from the main business. So everyone just thinks that they know what it is. They go, oh, okay, yes, hey, we've got a problem getting steel, so we ramp up a steel business to get steel in. But is it really steel that we needed, or was it just because at that point in time? So I think looking inside of what's the opportunities within our internal supply chain, and really focusing in on those.
Who's actually responsible for that piece of work, thinking, digging?
Well, yeah, so there is the person that's in charge of a company called Supply House. He would be the one that's looking at, what those opportunities are. But we have not spending much time with him in the data to actually say, hey, what data, I think we should be saying to him, this is the data we've got. There's some really cool shit in here you should be looking into, or do we say, what do you want to see? Which I don't think that's the right way. I think we need to push it to him.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, or just let him go dig. Just let him dig.
Yeah.
Like, just give him some time.
But I think that's why we pay part of data analysts is to go, hey, shit, there's a lot of opportunity here. Surface it up to those people and get them to start to dig.
I've got two questions. Oh, no, one question probably and one bit of feedback on that comment. So first question is, as the head of IT in your company, are you getting, let's call it pressure or maybe more responsibility to partner with your peers in the executive team and the management team to find these opportunities? Or do you wait, or how does that work?
No, we definitely go and ensure that we are trying to surface up that information with those teams. The problem I've got, this is going back onto how freaking much time it takes, is I feel like we are losing the battle a little bit in surfacing that information up in a timely manner. The company gets frustrated when they're not visualizing that data quick enough. They, most companies, before I was educated in this data world, was, can you run a report on this? And they expect something, that week. Whereas for us to actually spin up that data and make sure it's correct, it's going to take a month before you can actually get that. And for them to actually connect with that, that's where there's a bit of a disconnect.
Yeah, we need to drill a little bit more into that month thing, because
big time.
There's something there. There's something not quite. I understand how difficult data engineering, for example, can be, but I feel like there's an opportunity there. If you can fix that problem, you might be able to unlock more growth in your organization by providing more insights faster. I think we are getting closer to the root cause here.
But yeah, big time. I would actually say it sounds like the scope's too wide. that's where the expectation comes from internally, that they're expecting the world, but you can't produce the world in that time frame anymore because the data's not consistent, and you literally need to rebuild the stumps.
But also your challenge around is the scope defined well enough is a really important one, because when you have a big scope, then the effort to build that is really big. When you are really clear on your requirements, then you can unleash that you can give that to the technical people and they can build it quickly. And this is something that, again, when Marcel and I talk a lot about technology, this is some of the things that I'm learning from him, which is when you're constrained, when you're really, really, really resource constrained, you focus on the one thing that you need to get to the next stage. And I think larger organizations sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes get caught in this phase where, because they're resource rich and maybe they don't feel resource rich, but they've got some people versus a startup which has no people, they allow these bigger scopes to come forward and then they end up being larger projects. Rather than, and this is what my comment was going to be before, rather than tightening up what is the information that manager leader needs to double their business in three years, or take 1% of cost out, or reduce the risk on a project by 50%. And it's I think it's a symptom of big scopes, because the time hasn't been invested.
It's enterprise. This is enterprise 101. This is status quo. This is people getting comfortable with their ways. 25-year employees, they're not going to change overnight. Cultural stuff, also long-term projects, so they're not thinking short-term naturally because their entire world is long-term. But yeah, there might be opportunity there.
Now, I'm going to contradict what I'm saying after I've heard you say that. There's also the need to build long-term infrastructure. And so this is the challenge, I think, or the paradox, where you want to give the insights to your commercial teams to grow, but at the same time, you need to build the infrastructure that's going to last you maybe 5 years or 10 years, because you are going to be around in 5 or 10 years' time, maybe even longer, maybe 100 years. McNab's a really, really great business. It looks quite sustainable, great customer base. So there's that paradox between delivering immediate value and investing in infrastructure for the future. Because if you kick that infrastructure can down the road long enough, it will become a bigger problem later.
But I'm going to throw something in over that. We're living in a world where technology changes faster than you can even scope it. So investing in long-term infrastructure kind of seems like a bit of a dead horse, because by the time you're done, it's outdated.
I agree with you, because I think, and not to fully go into the AI space, but absolutely what we're seeing in the AI area now is making tools that used to be really important in a business obsolete. I'll give you one example from my personal experience, and not related to your data challenge, Matt, but language translation. There used to be some technology, and I'm going to use some jargon, so I'll have to pay for that later.
Give me $5, man.
Something called NLP, which was natural language processing, where you would process one language into another. With the advent of generative AI, that has and almost has become obsolete. But 2 years ago, that was the premium, not even 2 years, 18 months ago. And there will still be companies right now implementing that technology because they're not staying close to the forefront. So I think, Marcel, you are right there. There's a balance now on how far you invest in the future. But what we've got to do as business leaders is work out what are the foundations we need to put in place that are going to be around. And I think that's a bit of a, I don't want to say guessing game, but an educated view into the future. And I think data is we know, this is not my saying, but data is the fuel that drives AI, for example, and AI in companies.
Does this resonate? Like, how do you feel when you about what we're saying? Because you can tell us to fuck off. We're more than happy to leave.
No, I reckon you guys are spot on. I think it's what we're trying to produce is very holistic. It's very wide on what people are asking, and that's why it takes so long. Whereas if you said, I don't know, we can just focus in on this core data, you could get that out a lot quicker. But something else I've challenged the team with, and I think they struggle because they are data engineers, and they want it to be perfect and everything has to add up 100%, is to say, we can't do that. We don't have the time to be able to be 100% perfect. Yeah, the numbers have to be right, but you don't have to be 100%. 80% is good enough now. So let's give that 80%.
I love I love how you said that. This is why I could never work in corporate. So in startup, nothing's perfect. Nothing's done ever. It's done enough to get you the next step. And then you might throw it in the rubbish bin and go backwards and then go down another road. Who cares? It doesn't matter. Rudy, what's that like in corporate?
No, it's different, right? And so and I think Matt will probably empathize with this a little bit more than you, but you are building infrastructure for the long term, and people get attached to it. And they attach to their systems, their software, even sometimes their hardware, the people who love the servers in the back room, although that's definitely a dying trend. And that's where I think I was talking about the paradox before, where you're situated now between finding values to help unlock growth and what are the long-term decisions you need to make? Because Marcel's right, that in the corporate world, you don't go and spend $1 million on a data project and then throw it away in a week, because that's not how you're thinking. Because usually, and correct me if I'm wrong here, people are usually designing the technology, not the outcome. And in the startup world, they're thinking of the outcome, not the technology. And the technology is disposable and it's a tool to get the job done. I think, being in a business, not too dissimilar size to yours, there is a place for both of these approaches, and I think they run in parallel. And here's my take. There is nothing wrong with rapid prototyping in non-enterprise systems to see whether it's valuable for the commercial teams, the business teams, the marketers, the salespeople, whoever it might be. And then if it's valuable, then you engineer it. Then you systemize it, you make it enterprisey. There's a new term we're going to coin.
So Rudy, I'm actually really curious on this bit, because how does privacy come into that?
That's a really good question, because we are under absolute scrutiny when it comes to security and privacy as larger companies. And I think smaller companies need to deal with it too. Here's how I've been thinking about it. I think for a company like McNab, you need some no-code tools that you can trust to do the rapid prototyping. And it might be spreadsheets, but it might not be a traditional spreadsheet. It might be a Google Sheet. It might be Airtable. It might be Airtable. It might be What are the one or two very different tools that maybe a startup would use that you could certify and say that it's safe and secure, so you don't have a data breach, because that's really important. And I think if people are not thinking about that, they need to. But at the same time, give you the agility to rapidly prototype and iterate with the front end of your business, in particular commercial parts where the money is being generated, and then go, okay, that's working, that's valuable for them. Actually, that's worth investing real engineering time, software engineering time, and building it. That could be an approach that works.
So Matt, has that ever been tried, or have you ever tested like that?
No, but it's definitely something that rings very true. It's something that it is, try fast, fail fast type stuff. You want to see what's new, what's out there, what can give you that edge that you can actually see if it's there, see for what opportunities are within it. If it doesn't work, get rid of it. And I think that's where we fail. We'll look at something and we go, oh, it doesn't work. Oh, what about? And we keep persisting, and it's there for a couple of years. And then you go, shit, we've been doing this proof of concept for 2 years now. Just get rid of the bloody thing. And that's where we sort of, yeah.
Yeah, that's a discipline and a leadership thing that I think that is hard to live out, but it's one that to keep front of mind.
It's funny. This comes back to what Rudy mentioned before, which I wanted to go a little bit deeper on as well. I think the wrong people are asking the questions of your data. So the data questions need to come within, ring-fenced within some form of, control from the people who know how to make more money. Because as you said, there's 3 to 5% of efficiency in projects for the last 100 years in construction. You are not going to find another 10% of margin overnight any way possible. So your growth is coming from revenue. It is not coming from cost savings. So you need to find the revenue people and get them in the room, and literally they need the ability to have a tool that allows them to answer a question quickly so they can be nimble and move on with their role. And that's no code, effectively.
I think it's even just extending on that. It is delivering them the insights in the moment they're doing the work. So if they're at a customer and I don't know if you have a CRM, you might have a CRM. When they open their account page on their CRM, it's delivering them the insights about that customer that they need to know to get more growth. Now, if you don't have a CRM, maybe it's dropping it in their inbox the morning of the CRM, the morning of the meeting with the customer. And that's the kind of agile thinking that unlocks growth. It's not going, I don't have this, therefore I can't do anything. It's what does the person who is making money for the organization, what's the insight they need before they go and sit with a customer, and how can I get it to them in any way, even if you have to text it to them 5 minutes before their sales call or their interaction with a customer.
I think even going beyond that, like you want to know, and something that we've been, this is definitely one on our high priority list, is the benchmarking data within our estimating and within the construction, and servicing that back around. So then it goes back into estimating. So they know exactly what the market is doing. So when they're sitting down with a client and they know benchmarking data, and the client goes, why is this costing so much? And they go, well, your floor area is this, and you got this much glazing, and you got this much this. If you were able to change those ratios in this sort of way, your building cost is going to change. And you could double, you could do this, and they could do that on the fly once they know exactly what those benchmark metrics are. So it's something that we're definitely working on. You only need like 10 different metrics type thing, and you could really change the game.
Well, so it's funny you really say that. So a very good friend of mine has come up with an incredible energy solution, and he's built that calculator. And he ran me through it one night. He literally just said, I can pull up any office building anywhere in the world. I know their exact square meterage. I know how many people normally are in that office building. He plugs all that into his calculator, and it spits out the energy savings over a 5-year period. Bang. Done in 3 seconds. If I was a salesperson, which I am, I would like that.
The point where I'd like to kind of round that topic up on is, once you start doing this, think of all the ideas that will come out of your business. So if you're too fixed in how you do your delivery from a technology point of view, you won't be able to keep up with the opportunities that are coming from the front end of your business, the ones that are interfacing with the customer and having those conversations, because they're operating in a world of minutes and hours, and deals are done with they need that information really quickly. And once you give them a taste for it, you need to be able to keep up. And that's where we're balancing the approach around long-term system and technologies versus agility and continuing to iterate. Now, you will get to a point, I think, and a lot of companies get to, where those metrics and those insights stabilize. And that's the time I think you build it.
We do want to ensure that we're never that rigid that, hey, system says you have to go and tick that box and that's what you need to do. So if you're following a CRM or something like that, we never want to get to that. We want to always make sure that you go back to like your first principles, that you know how a deal is done, you know how to how to get something across the line. It's just because you got to go and, tick a box. That's not how, we want to operate.
Rudy, just out of curiosity, because I'm not going to lie, I live in the $5 to $50 million world. Is it possible to build a culture internally around technical platforms that people, the actual team, the people in the business they don't just feel they're ticking boxes? Like, do they ever just feel that, hey, this is working for me?
There's a little, my experience where I've had success, and I can only talk about where things have gone right and wrong for me personally. But the closer the technology team and the business teams are together, the more magic they can create. So, for example, my CRM team, the customer service part of the CRM team and the customer service team really work very, very closely together, and they're iterating every day. I mean, they deploy, they release new functionality Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, multiple times To give you an example, same in the sales area is probably not as fast because the process is well established and it's not transforming. Our web team, again, same thing, really fast iteration, reacting to customer needs. But it is making sure that technology teams don't end up in the back working on their own. They have to remember that they're part of your entire business. And sometimes I catch myself doing this. So this is not a criticism of everyone. Technology teams talk about the business like it's a third party. So what does the business want? No, you are the business. You are the business. You just work in a different part of it, and your job is to partner with the people that are growing the revenue. And do I have that right? Absolutely not. But I have had examples where it's worked really well, and it's when those the people that are doing the work from a technology point of view and the people doing the work for the customer are highly integrated. They can make real magic.
Mate, I think you nailed it there, saying partnering, not just being a resource and being called upon. They really need a partner with them.
So to de-jargon what Rudy just said again, the business people, the commercial team need to understand the capability of technology, and the technologists need to understand enough of the strategy of the commercial business growth. Now, that's very hard because they're different sides of the brain and very different people.
Well, I know. I think that the commercial people need to understand the outcomes they want, and the technologists need to know how to deliver those outcomes using the different tools that they have.
Tell me a time ever in your entire careers where that has worked in the beautiful, utopian way that you just described it.
It's hard to emulate, but when you can make it work, it does make magic. I'd like to actually, if I can, loop back around to the difficulty with data engineering you have, and I just want to ask some questions, if that's okay. And maybe we can come back to some more of this part of the conversation. Matt, are you across something called zero copy when it comes to data? Have you come across this concept yet, where you can basically connect data tools, data lake and warehousing tools that can connect to other sources of data without having to extract, transform, and load? So it connects directly to a source, and your data warehouse or data lake has access to that data without having to do an ingestion and transformation. Now that's called ETL, but I didn't want to use the jargon. Snowflake, I think, was one of the companies that became, I don't know if they were the pioneer, but certainly they were the one that I first heard about, Datadog, but now everyone is doing it. And it's centered around some industry standards. They're called Parquet file formats, which is a standard way for data tools to talk to one another. And the emergence of this technology now has started to really accelerate the ability for us to deliver data solutions at a rate that you've never been able to do before. And it's not limited to those companies I mentioned. If I could, Microsoft has got their version with Fabric, Google's got their version, Salesforce have their version. And because it's an open format, the format is open, people are building tools around it. I'm not having to do the data consolidation work. I'm now able to look at data in another platform and not have to bring it across. So if you haven't heard of that yet, that is something I think you really need to look at in conjunction with, your rapid prototyping type no-code, low-code tools that you can get closer to your business with.
Yeah, I'm really keen to look into that. What's the performance of getting access to that data and utilizing that data?
It's very impressive because it's designed around not real time, but very low millisecond rates. Would you use it for real time triggers in a manufacturing context? Probably not, but absolutely in the context of B2C, triggering an abandoned cart or sales, or absolutely in your industry, it would be perfect where you don't need real time. This is kind of sub real time, and it's the open format around that has allowed this to happen. And so then everyone's just building their own tooling, and they've got their own point of difference around it. And there's a lot of interoperability in these tools now.
And I assume it could be automated as well, Rudy. Is that right? once you're in there, you automate the whole workflow.
Correct. So you can get access to, you might have a legacy ERP system. A lot of companies do, right? And actually the investment
Had it for 30 years.
Yeah. And actually
That's legacy.
and there's nothing wrong with that. If it does the job and the only problem you've got is you can't get the data out of it, if it's got any sort of structured database, there's tools that can, for example, if it's a MySQL database or an MS SQL database, again, I'm using jargon there and I apologize, but we are technologists and that does happen.
I do not even know what those letters mean.
Databases. So you might have a legacy database and you can just, there is tools that help you connect them with these no loading or zero load data lakes and data warehouses. And I think for you looking at that in your strategy could really accelerate what you're trying to do.
Definitely, I'm very intrigued. So, mate, I definitely will be hitting you up to getting more info on that one.
I'm just going to put this out there right now. So we are a non-commercial podcast. So we don't.
right.
No, 100%. We don't take money from anyone. We don't have any rebate deals or anything like that. So we just want to give you honest feedback on what we think. I just know I really want to go back to the whole. Where's the immediate growth? What will make the CEO happiest? If you went back and said, look what our data did.
I think I touched on it before. I think, the immediate growth, what the CEO wants is for those smaller businesses to grow.
I would suggest this might be a resourcing issue. Your data scientist, I can guarantee, is not the right skill set. Nothing against them, but they won't even be able to speak the same language as the sales guys. You need someone translating that, because if you're asking the data scientist to find nuggets, they don't know what nuggets are there. They don't have the faintest idea. They could go straight over a nugget and not even know it. And then if you're asking the commercial team to scope in IT language, not a hope in hell. That translation in between is where you'll probably find, and the beauty is you've got a really contained project. You've got a 50-person, they've got a 10% of your entire workforce that you can ring fence this little thing around to deliver immediate results. I would say an even better question to ask is, what barriers is stopping you getting a sale over the line faster? If they can answer that question to you, you and your data scientist will know what data potentially could help assist that. That's what we mean about root cause. The root cause is not a scope. Scope is a why, is a how. We want the why. So why are you getting that information in the first place? It's so they can, close the sale faster, or, come back when the client argues about price, or whatever it happens to be, or find out that they double paid for something because they didn't know that the services were integrated. They're the questions you need. Because I guarantee if you have those questions, you'll be able to find the answers pretty damn quick.
A big thing that they're trying to achieve is they're very much internal-facing companies at the moment. I think the big objective is, how do we turn that? How do we turn it outside? And once you turn it outside, the world's your oyster. You have so many more clients. You're not just talking to one client anymore. That's when the growth's going to happen. So how do we escalate that? How do we get that?
You always need to turn these 30-year-old businesses that have had one client for the last 15 years into startups again. One good way Rudy's picked up on it a few times, just strangle them with resource. And then they don't have any other choice but to sell more stuff.
Or give them a really big target. That's the other way to get people getting out of their comfort zone, is giving them a really big target and then put an incentive around it.
I can imagine how hard it would be though, because integration, I think I spoke to an M&A lawyer the other day who said like 95% of mergers and acquisitions fail on integration. But people still buy businesses every single day because it's just so hard to put something else into something else. So just focus on extracting the value that you need to extract. The full integration isn't the end result. The end result is, what's the enterprise value? Have we achieved that? Is there any more? Nope. Cool. Move on.
I think we're really lucky that the integration's not an issue for us. they are fully integrated. So we're lucky on that side. So we don't have that struggle of, bringing in a new company. We born it out of nothing type thing. So now we've just got the opportunity of growing it.
But you're finding it very hard to do that.
Hey, they're only a couple of years old. They've got time. But no.
Yeah, no. It's yeah. I get
Hey, Marcel, have you ever had 2 years to grow a company?
Are you, mate? I've had 2 hours. The challenges you have are exactly the same in every single business, and this is one of the reasons we wanted to start this podcast. Of you can be $1 billion, 600-person company, or you could be a $200,000 sole enterprise. Your problems are the same because you're solving the needs of customers, and the better and faster you can do that, the more you will grow. Simple as that. Everything else is fluff.
Now's a good time to probably round up what I think where we've got to. So I think the for me, what I heard the takeaways from the three of us talking now is getting really clear on what it is people need to grow their business. You could call it scope, you can call it outcome, but there's some insights that can be delivered closer to the customer that will help unlock growth. That's number one. I think number two is getting brave and maybe not implementing, using it, let's call it a long-term mindset. So maybe going, well, if growth was the most important thing, how can we do it quicker? And then how can we, in parallel, systemize it once we know that it's the right thing to do? And then lastly, it sounds like probably some thinking and research to do around, have you got the right technology for your next few years of growth, in particular in the data area?
That scoping piece is a hard one. And I kind of feel like I want to do some work for you after this episode, and I'll put it up onto all of our socials, of kind of just being able to ring fence what are the questions from a technology department need to be asked to the commercial department to get the answers that create your scope. You need stuff in your language, but they also need it in their language. So that little transition, and it's funny, this is why we hate jargon. It's simplicity that wins. The less jargon is the best way to translate between languages. Just bring it back to the simple. So I actually think that there's a really good piece of work that you could almost, and I'll put together some stuff, but like those 4 items, I feel like would really get some energy back into this project, and you're not feeling so down about the fact that you can't find this data and you don't have time and and it starts becoming more exciting and fun.
Yeah, and you win together. That's the whole point of business. Getting back to winning together.
You said you're a family, so yeah, speak to your brothers. No, so I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think you have to simplify. I think you have to also, these businesses grown out of a big business, the big business has its big business way of thinking, and you pull that into those smaller businesses. I think you have to decouple that, and you have to say, well, no, like you talk about startup. So think of it more as a startup. Don't think of it as still having all that legacy of that big business. Just break it down to the little bits and pieces, and then just go on target.
Well, we use the best bits out of both. Use the best parts out of both. So go, what's the good thing about a larger business, and keep that. And then what's the good thing about smaller businesses, and do more of that. And there's probably a real opportunity getting the best out of both worlds.
Yeah, and just in that conversation, to be honest, because I assume this is probably a different lens than you've been talking about internally up to date. So it'll just be really interesting because the 600 people's opinion, that I think even just the executive team's opinion, that'll even make this even bigger and more opportunity based. So there's your action plan. We're going to put that up. We're going to send it to you. And because I'm not going to lie, my mother actually told me to do this, because she said, how do you know if your strategies actually worked? I went, oh, that's a very good point. So we're going to follow up with you in 6 to 8 weeks. Sorry for giving you homework. Because I know we really just want to be interested to know, Rudy and I think different. Rudy's had the luxury of 14 years inside a company that he kind of built and grew the team around him. So they kind of let him run in a way. And I was the same. I kind of built it from scratch. So they kind of left me on my island and alone, but it doesn't work everywhere. So we're really interested to see how it's received and if it can actually make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. Love to.
A big thanks to Matt for joining us. We really enjoyed the conversation. What really stood out for me is how McNab's growth has created a paradox for their business, building long-term infrastructure while still needing to be fast and agile to get those critical insights.
And I'd actually say that most businesses are probably in a very similar situation right now. And I love that we landed on the concept of 80% sometimes is just good enough to solve what's in front of you. Move quick and unlock growth.
And for Matt, I think the next step is clear. Empowering those new business units with better access to data without getting burdened and buried in endless engineering. There's just no value in that.
Oh, God, the last thing you want is a 2-year CRM rollout. So we'll be checking back in, see how it all plays out, and it'll be really, really interesting to see where they're going.
Now, if you like today's episode, follow us on your favourite podcast app, leave us a review on Apple Podcast or Spotify, or subscribe to us on YouTube and share it with someone who would get value out of the conversation.
And if you don't know where to go, find us online at therootpodcast.com or on your socials at Listen to the Root, all one word.